Hey everyone, welcome to this fantastic spotlight session on the topic of illumination, exploration, and healing and clearing what there is to heal and clear within ourselves so that we can shine our light in the world. I always use this analogy that our lighthouse has these big, beautiful windows, where our light's supposed to shine, and all this fog gets in the way of our light coming through, and part of our job is to clear it away. And that is what this whole theme of illumination is about. We need to go in and look and see what there is to see, and then do the work to clear that fog away. And I'm super excited today because I have my friend, my teacher, my partner in arms on this journey to shine our lights brighter in the world, my friend Amanda Foy, who is here to chat with us a bit about this idea of exploring within ourselves and healing and clearing. And I have to say, Amanda is the emotional strength trainer. And when I first started to work with her, to do sessions with her and to be part of her group, she was probably the first person who really prompted me to start exploring my own way of shining my light into myself and looking to see what needs to be seen and what needs to be worked on. And Amanda, I have to say that your process that you do certainly inspired this journey I'm on now to share the Lighthouse Oracle. Here it is. Because that came about my own ideas to illuminate and to shine a light within my own lighthouse and see what there was to ignite, to strengthen or align, to heal and clear. And so I don't know if you know that, but your work really prompted me to explore and ask myself, maybe I could do something like that with the lighthouse as a framework. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I can assure you that as part of my role, as what I want to do in my passion and purpose is helping people to be able to step into their natural gifts. And I think together with what you've done with the lighthouse and the analogy that you created with that, you've certainly really embraced it, and I do love it, and I'm very excited that you've come up with a deck of cards, of oracle cards, and the process is like genius because I think, wow, and I can't wait for it to come to fruition because I will be using them in my practice. So I don't use cards very often, but it's very it's fun and funny not funny that when you do this kind of work, that people actually won't believe what you're saying until a random card out of a deck comes up and says, see, I told you.
That's so true. And we do it ourselves. Like, I know I'll pull a card and I'll be like, oh, yeah, see, I knew that. I just it's like you need something to bash you over the head and be like, see?
That's right. And it's tangible. That's the other thing, these things that you can, and again, with your color, I'm just sitting here, actually, there's a friend of mine in the US who makes malas, and she's been doing all of these other ones. And even though I work in the chakra system as well, I never had anything that was in the color schemes. So I said to her, can you make me one that's in the chakra colors? So she did. And it's just like, I put it on and I feel all unicorny, but it's great.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like whatever tools, because you and I, we're kind of into a lot of the same things with essential oils and playing with things like decks or crystals and really anything that helps you to explore and to, do the work or to hold on to an anchor, something that will just give you that thing to focus on. It's just helpful. It's all just about doing the work. And that's why I wanted to invite you here, because you have such a unique way of actually approaching that work. So first, perhaps you can just share with us a bit about what you do. You're an energy healer and you work within the chakra system, but I just love your take on how you approach and help people. So maybe you could just start by doing a bit of an intro and tell us a bit about what it is you do.
Okay, thank you. Well, as Karen's already mentioned, I'm the emotional strength trainer, and I've been doing this kind of work since 2009, and I went full-time on it in 2012 because it was, I had a corporate life and thought I should do a business that was corporately based so people would take me seriously. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, this is not floating my boat anymore. I need to do something that's more meaningful. So I used all my skills and experience and created the brand of the Emotional Strength Trainer. So it's a very grounded concept that brings in all amounts of information to help people join the dots as to why they're feeling stuck, or they've got depression and anxiety, or they're sick. I work with a lot of people who have illness as the foundation for why they come in to work with me. Relationship problems, all of those sorts of things. So the gift that I have, a natural gift that I can see emotional trauma stuck in people's bodies. And the thing that I'm hoping to do with this process, because as you know, Karen, I'm medically friendly. So I look at parts of the body and other things. So I've been living this way myself since I was 14 years old. So that's 32, 33 years of living and implementing this process called the Trio of Health. So what happens with that is when people come into my business, into my coaching and teaching and my online group, is we join the dots with what is there right now. And through that process, it can be, if somebody's stuck, you use the Oracle cards, or I use a couple of reference books, Ina Segal's body book and recognizing. So when I see it, so somebody's shoulder might be playing up, so I go and look at the book. Or sometimes I'll see somebody's spine. Another time I might see somebody's got something in their stomach, and I'm thinking, and then I ask them, have you got dark circles under your eyes? Is there a crusty scum on your tongue? And then with my nutritional knowledge, I'm able to say, I think you might have parasites and you should do this, this, and this. But it's the same thing of just joining the dots, joining the dots. There's an emotional foundation to every point of lack in your life, whether it is health or whether it is not feeling like you're on top of things or whatever. And if you can join the dots back, there's cosmic influences, there's lunar influences, there's some really cool, and intuition comes into it as well, because that directs it too. So that's essentially what I do with emotional strength training, is join the dots as to why things aren't working. We find them, and then the united front that Karen and I present to the world is we take positive action. Once we know what we're dealing with, then we can step into action of how to fix it, whether that's going to the doctor, whether that is going to an acupuncturist, a chiropractor, seeing somebody that does energy healing, having an Illuminate session with Karen, because I love that process too, by the way. She goes through all of this cool stuff, and it's just like, oh, yeah. So those kind of actions to help you get on top of things so that you can start to step through and not wallow or get stuck. Wallowing is okay, but because we have to allow things, but you only want to do that for a little while. Otherwise, it begins to build neural pathways and it's harder to change behavior. So that's essentially what I do. And
I love how you describe it as connecting the dots, because I think that's just something that's so tangible. Like anybody can choose to do more of that within themselves, and start having a willingness to explore and ask questions like, why does that keep coming up for me? Why, am I stuck in this? I thought I got past it last year and it's back up for me again. Or why is it showing up in my body? And I know that's one of the things you mentioned that you can do and that we can actually practice doing, is recognizing where that stuck stuff shows up so that we can explore it further. And when we're talking about the stuff, this can be anything, right? From fear, worry, self-doubt, past trauma, limiting beliefs, old patterns and stories. Like it's so many things that we aren't facing can build up within ourselves, right? And prevent us from doing the things that we want to do.
Absolutely. The science behind cells holding memory, and the process that you can scientifically explain from the reason why. Say, for example, the other day I was washing my face, getting ready for the day, and I had this dry patch of skin under here. Now you can map out your face, and it's also connected to organs and things like that, which is, organs are connected to an emotion. So when I had a look at it, this is the, I think it's the stomach area. And then skin is connected to grief. And when I found out those two dots in the puzzle, I was able to sit there and think, well, the stomach is connected to disgust and then the grief. And I'm like, oh. So, positive action, put some moisturizer on, but also sit there and do the work around letting go of that grief, which is just acknowledgement. And I think that, as part of your lighthouse process, acknowledgement is that what are you shining the light on here? It's coming out in these smallest things. So let's shine a light on it, follow the process, ask the questions. Being curious all the time it's sort of like the golden wrapper on your Willy Wonka chocolate bar, when you can sit there and have this process in your mind that you know how to get to something really quickly. Because to sit there, and when I recognized what the grief was, it made me sad. I'm like, oh, and that same thing, I thought I dealt with that. Bloody hell. Then I look at the dates, then I look at the things, and is there memories, is this, okay. So then I'm ready to release it now. And then you shift through it. And that process for me was half a day. Whereas once upon a time, and this is also what I feel compassion for people who don't have these processes that suffer a lot. And I guess that's the foundation of which I work from. We're not going to cure anything. We're all going to die. Every one of us is going to die at some point. It's the suffering of getting that is my passion and purpose, is to reduce that. And through having these processes in your arsenal of waking up thinking, I don't feel like suffering today. Let me get this done. So you do it, boom, away it goes. And you can get through it really fast.
I have to share the story. I always share this story with your group. When I first joined Amanda's group, Carmi, and started to, explore this exact thing that we've been talking about, connecting the dots, shining a light on what we need to sort of work on or shift or strengthen within ourselves. One of the first sort of big successes I had with doing this work was that I had a number of warts on my foot and on my leg and a few on my hand. And I thought, okay, let's try this. Let's connect the dots and see. I'd already sort of made the decision that I was like, enough is enough. I want to get rid of these things. But I thought, okay, well, go to the doctor and do the things I need to do. But I'll also look at what's underneath that. What's the emotional side of this? What are these showing me? And do the work to connect the dots. And for me, as I connected all the different dots, it was about self-worth and self-love. And all I needed to do really to heal them all was to make a decision to practice building self-worth, self-love, self-belief. And even before I took any other action besides making that decision, all of them were gone, even the ones that weren't treated by the doctor. And that was such a powerful time for me, because it made me realize actually how important it is to do the inner work and to take positive action, but to look at the different pieces and how they come together. And while this is still something that I work on all of the time, that was a big beginning step for me. And it actually, crazily, it just healed them all.
It blew my mind when you see, this is a part of my life that I never want to lose. And I was on the way to dropping my kids off to school this morning. John Edwards was on the radio show here in Brisbane this morning, and he was saying that he still has a healthy level of skepticism about what he wants to do. And I thought that's an interesting way to describe it, but it's the same thing that I think when I say I never want to lose this aspect of my passion and purpose, that I get blown away when people's results show up. So when you said, I remember you sharing it, because I remember reading it going, no way. And then I'm like, of course way, because this is how this stuff works. But it's another important part of that, which is the same with what you've built with your lighthouse analogy. Part of what I do is there's an anatomy of an awareness. So what I teach is there's 3 levels of awareness. And the first level of awareness is something is wrong. So if we use your example of seeing that the warts were there, something is wrong and I'm sick of them, so I want to do something about it. So you step into level 2, which is doing something about it. And you did all of the right processes. You check with the doctor, and then you start to read. And then you speak out aloud about it in a place of vulnerability where you came into the group. And it's not, warts they're an interesting thing. And I remember you had one under your nail or something as well, didn't you?
Mm.
So, and because of your love for nail polish and things like that, I thought, wow, that's a really big thing for you to show people, that these things are on your hands. So again, you go to that place of vulnerability, you state, and then you say out aloud, I don't want these things anymore. And then the other thing that's the third level, which is that part where I'm talking about cellular awareness, that's where our energy work is, like people that can offer that energy base to whatever healing they're doing. And that's the other part. Like in my group, the energy is always on. So you are able to come through and follow the 3 processes to be able to sit there. And then when that collective energy is like, oh, go away, we're done, we're healing this. It's why energy therapies need to be a part of the mainstream, as well as, it's not instead of. I don't believe instead of. In some cases, yes, once you've been doing this for a while and you can bring it straight in and you can heal things quickly, but it's an as well as process. And I think with, definitely with your group and your process as well, it's a good level 3 healing part of the journey.
And that's very much, what I'm wanting to teach with this, using the Oracle deck, as I mentioned, as a tool is that, there's more to it, say, than just, pulling a card and going with what the message is and then going, oh, that's interesting, and going on. There is a level of exploration that we need to do. There's a level of awareness and willingness to, like you said, that curiosity and saying, I wonder why that's showing up. I wonder where it comes from. I wonder what I need to release or let go or forgive, or, if there's some other healing that I need to do. And also then that level of action, not just staying in that space of stuckness, but rather, what can I do now? What's a step that I can take that's a positive step forward? And then sometimes it's even just the littlest steps, that make a massive difference. And that's one of the things I love about what you teach. It's not just that sort of base level, oh, here, let me tell you what's wrong, and off you go. There are more steps to that we can take on our own or with support that make a massive difference.
Absolutely. I've come to a place with, my coaching and my online group and those sorts of things, where I look at other providers that are doing amazing work, and it's in the level 2. It's the bringing awareness, the mindset work, the joining the dots and going, oh, that's it, and then knowing that they're missing the level 3 work. And it's one of my dreams, I guess, that to make sure that these people that are doing amazing work can actually solidify what they're doing, because that's the thing for anybody. When you get to a place of sabotage, that's when there's the cellular work needs to be done, because there are the neural pathways that prevent you from taking that step, where the fear is that big. And sometimes the fear of standing in your light too much. What happens if I am standing in my light? There's a story attached to being attacked, or having somebody tell you you're a fraud, or you don't know what you're talking about. All of those kind of things can also, that Marianne Williamson saying, you're not frightened of failing, you're frightened of shining too brightly, because of what that means. And there's plenty of examples. Like look at Oprah Winfrey, the amount of time she opens her mouth about something and somebody's going to attack her for it. I think we've spoken about this before. Do you remember she told people in America to cut beef out of their diet 1 day a week, and then the Beef Association was going to sue her because of the damage that would do to their industry? It's like, oh, right. That we have evidence all the time when you stand in your truth about how other people don't like it. And
and we carry that, don't we? We carry that our whole lives, and sometimes the level of awareness is enough to start healing. I always say, when you shine a light on something, that loses its power. Things fester in the darkness. But sometimes it does take more than that, and the support from from energy workers, from healers, from intuitive people who can help you to see more than you can see by yourself, from mentors and mindset coaches. I mean, there's so many elements that can come into play, and I think that's one of the cool things about the idea of connecting the dots. You can say this piece and this piece and this piece, I can see how they're fitting together. Now once I start to see that bigger picture, now what will help me in this situation?
Absolutely. I want to give you I've just had a point of reference come into my brain that I want to share. So a couple of weeks ago, we were at my son's basketball game, and one of the mothers where our sons are in the same grade, her mum, who I've known for years as well, our kids used to play soccer together years ago, she was there, and she'd gone off to get some water, and a few minutes later this other person came back and said, "Is your mum, this lady, she's on the steps, she's having difficulty breathing." So my friend and I both went over to her, and she was clammy and she had this pain and stuff like that. For all intents and purposes, it looked like she was having a heart attack. So somebody got on having getting the ambulance. We got her to lie down, and we popped her legs up, and I was rubbing her legs, but had the juju on, so I was able to support. And then she's lying there, and all of a sudden everything stopped. Like, she stopped breathing, everything, and I have no point of reference of that. I'm like, holy shit. Anyway. So her daughter was standing there talking to the ambulance. I said, "She's lost consciousness, tell them to hurry up." And then, because I panicked and because of what I do with the energy work, I just fired it through because I panicked. I'm like, no, you're not allowed to die. And then, she sort of jolted, and then we rolled her on her side and undid her. The pain across her back was bad, so we undid her bra and stuff like that, and just got her to breathe. And her son-in-law was there and talking to her and keeping her lucid. So the ambos came and they did everything right, and I kept asking her daughter, what was it? Because they said there was nothing to do with a heart attack. And then they sent her off to a cardiologist, and she'd had a blood clot in her lung. So they found the blood clot. So this is where you take the unicorn out of everything and you find what the real issue is and go from there. Then I said to her daughter, I'm standing there talking to her like 2 or 3 weeks later, "How's your mum? Blood clot." And I went, "Oh," and it was in her lung. I said, "Lung is grief." I said, "So what grief has she got?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know." She said she was thinking it. And then I said, "Is there any history of blood clots?" Yes, her dad died of a blood clot in the aorta, so in his heart. And I said, "It wasn't in 1999, was it?" Because at the moment, this year, we are healing things from 1999. It's that do-over energy. And the two particular times are March, April, and then September, October, because of the eclipse seasons. So my friend's eyes went like dinner plates, and she said, "God, I think it was." And I said, "Here we go." I said, "Genetic memory, blood clot. Your mum suffered horribly when her dad died. So she manifests a blood clot in her lung because that's where her grief is, and it was her right lung, so that's your masculine side of the body." And I said, "It's because it's unprocessed grief from when she lost her dad all the way back then." Now, that era, they're not allowed, stoic, don't show too much imagination, get on with it, it's okay, that sort of stuff. So it's swallowed, okay? So the gift of it is, and this is where you can stay out of story, is she's broken the pattern of dying from a blood clot. Yes, it was traumatic for everyone concerned, and I was able to explain it to her mum and sit there and say, "So now you deal with that grief so that you're not having to." They got it. Everything was, they put her on the medication, the blood clot's been cleared, she's fine. Nobody has, in this generation, my generation with my friend, has to deal with an untimely death of a grown-up, okay? And she's relatively young. I think she's only in her early 60s. So that's how this stuff works. Like, she's a healthy woman. Like, she has really good BMI index, and she's, very mobile, cognizant, all of that sort of thing. How did somebody like you get a blood clot? So it's one of those things where you join the dots, but you get the medicine in there to make sure that everything is done properly. So that's the process as well, where you're looking at things outside. Well, it's the same thing with somebody that's sitting there and they're stuck and they're self-sabotaging. What's wrong with me? Ask the questions. Join the dots. Have a look at all of these points of reference. And the thing with the oracle cards is even though they're just a piece of cardboard, that's how you connect with the universe. I can't see what I need to see, so shuffle the cards. And one of the things that Karen said before we got on the thing, her cards are broken into chakra colors or systems. You can take out one whole section. So if you've got pain in your heart, you can take that color out of the cards and sit there and hold them and then ask for a direction. Boom, there you go. That's why this sort of stuff is so important for people who are trying to get to the bottom of things. But the other thing that I also want to add to that, once you've got the information, once you've joined the dots together, once you've taken your positive action, then you go into that gratitude of, oh, I've sorted that now. Let's get on with it. And you go into your bigger picture and away you go. You don't want to over analyze or, have recurring, oh, what's the next thing? That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that story. That's such a profound example of how anything that's showing up in your life, you could take that step to ask the question, where is this coming from and why is it happening now? And particular things that suddenly you're feeling stuck about, you think that you've dealt with, you can ask. It's as simple as being curious, as you mentioned, and asking that question. I thought what we could do is just share a few more ideas of how to connect the dots, because we've mentioned the cards. The cards can be a tool, to tap into whatever is going on with you and ask the question, what's showing up for me? And the cards can just help you to, act like a signpost. Look at this, check this out. We've mentioned the chakra system, which we both work with. You work with it in the within the physical body. I work with it as it overlaps with a lighthouse as a way to explore the different things that we need to be, building within ourselves. And the other one, of course, that you mentioned, and I'm going to just grab the book, is the physical body. And this is the book that Amanda mentioned, The Secret Language of Your Body by Ina Segal. And this is, this is how I was like, so what's, if I want to heal these warts, let me look and see what they represent, why they're showing up, and what are some of the other stuff I need to work on. And this is like, anybody can buy this book and start practicing and using it. But of course, we all get messages, we all get information, we can all connect dots in different ways. And one of the ways that you do that I wanted you to mention is that you oftentimes get symbols and messages from animals.
Oh, yes.
They show up in your work with people.
100%. Yes, they do. It's one of my points of difference, I suppose, where I'm able to see and recognize. And that's one of the biggest things about joining the dots, is looking for unorchestrated messages. So I have a friend who lives in Guatemala, actually, and she, it's great, the amount of people that I'm training to notice animal symbols and animal signs, because they will just randomly turn up out of the blue and you get to notice them. So this lady had a lady beetle, a ladybug, land on her desk, and it wouldn't fly away. It was going over her mouse, or it'd come and land on her hand, all those sorts of things. 2 weeks this lady beetle has been in her life, and she tagged me on a post yesterday and said that ladybug died yesterday, but guess what happened? Another one came in just afterwards. After I noticed it had died, another one's come in and it won't leave her desk. So it's one of those things. And I have another example. These are real life examples where a friend of mine was driving home and a bird slapped into her windscreen. And these are the things where the universe is telling you, pay attention, pay attention. So when I do an energy session, if an animal is showing up, then I have a couple of websites that I go and I find the information, and every time, so I will speak to it while I'm finding the information, and then the information comes up. Google is your friend. You just type the animal and then animal totem. So, for example, the bird that hit my friend's windscreen was a kookaburra. So kookaburra animal totem. And then you go and read about it and it's like, oh, that makes sense. And every time. So you're just looking at like spiritual realms where animals, and it's the same thing with an animal like a cat or a dog. If their owner is upset, the cat will come and sit on your lap. How many stories have you heard where somebody hates cats and they go and sit at somebody's house and this cat will come and sit on their lap? And it's because the cat resonates with whatever pain is going on, or the dog, same thing. You know, people have dogs that help and things like that. So out of the blue things, and when I'm doing my weekly session, sometimes I'll hear a bird, or there'll be crows. There's a lady 2 doors up from us that feeds the crows. It drives me nuts. But if there is a crow sitting on my fence looking at my window, or looking at me through my window, I'm like, oh, there must be a message there. When a bird shows up that's not usually here. So the other day I was doing a session for somebody and all of a sudden a rainbow lorikeet just flew into my tree, and eating berries that they don't usually eat. And I'm like, oh, message. So I went and found lorikeet. Sure enough, it matched. And it's a really nice way of recognizing your environment. And again, joining the dots to unusual things. But the key thing that this does is it brings you to your now. One of the things that we get stuck in when we are struggling through something is we're projecting back into our past, and then we're projecting back into our future with possibilities that haven't even come back. So if you have an animal show up, whether it's a lizard or a dog or a beetle, grasshoppers, dragonflies, or butterflies are another good one, these are the things where you go, oh, what's the message that I'm being asked to look at here? And once again, because this lady with the ladybug, and ladybugs are good luck, but there's more to the message of that. These ladybugs are still sitting there. I know as soon as my friend acts, the ladybug will have done its job and it will go. And that's how you formulate or look at where your actions come from. Everyone who watches this, please know that the foundation of everything that Karen and I are about is action. And when you get your messages from the universe, these unorchestrated things, that's where you first question, oh, what am I supposed to do now? Do. Now.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I got messages through music, and Amanda was one of the first people that I really started to practice my own Illuminate process with, who said, that's different. That's your point of difference, and sort of gave me that little bit of a nudge to keep exploring that, because when she told me those songs that you shared with me were so spot on, and they helped me to connect the dots. I thought, and that's what the big thing is, no matter what sort of stage you're at on your journey and exploration and intuition, is noticing what you notice. Notice, what comes into your field of view that allows you to connect the dots. Whether it's animals or music or, sensations in your physical body or working in the chakra system or whatever. There's no hard and fast rule about what this looks like. This is permission, and this is our nudge to you listeners. Notice what you notice. Notice what comes up for you. Notice what, keeps kind of tapping you on the shoulder, smacking you over the head, because that's where your exploration is. And when you begin to notice what you notice and connecting those dots, first of all, it'll get stronger. You'll get better at noticing. You'll get better at shining that light of awareness on things, but also you'll get quicker at taking action and quicker at taking steps and knowing what steps to take. And there's no, if you open up the book and you're like, okay, I got that there's like a whole page of information. Well, what resonates with you? What gives you goosebumps? What pops out at you? The same as when you have an oracle book, you don't have to do everything that the book says. You can, whatever comes up for you is what it means. Really.
I can give people a really good clue about how to recognize when something resonates. Okay. When and how when you're out of resonation with what you're supposed to be doing in life, even for people who have been stuck for a really long time. The moments are fleeting, but there are, when you are out of resonation or out of alignment with what you're meant to be doing or how you're meant to be going, you will feel icky. You will feel irritated, resentment, angry. You will feel like sometimes people get to the point where the brain chemicals sit there and they say, what's the point? And that's when you're in danger zones of very ordinary things happening. So that's where I often, if somebody gets to the what's the point, nick off to the doctor, get some chemical intervention, and then start on your practice. And that's being very grounded in our approach, because brain chemistry affected can put things into really dire situations. But when, even from that point of anger, when you're in a situation and you feel less than, that's where your something is wrong can start to kick in. And as soon as you are reading these things and you have that, even if it is fleeting, of like, oh, of course, and then if the doom comes back, there's your sign of, go back and read that sentence again. And if you have to read that sentence 6 times, then that's okay. If you have to write it down and say it out loud 6 times or 12 times or all day. So, for example, years ago in my journey, I had all of these people coming into my life who just kept robbing me of my ability. And it was back in my people-pleasing days. So when I recognized that my inability to say no to these people that were out of alignment with me was causing me so much grief, I worked out an affirmation for myself, which is, I only attract people into my life who love and accept me for who I am and are on the same path as me. And it changed everything. But I tell you, I was saying that every possible moment in the day, because my fear of having more people like that come in was so terrifying for me. At first, my affirmation was trying to build up like this Teflon wall of, I only attract. It's the same. I remember having an energy session on myself one day, and all of these colors and things were just so horrible, so revoltingly horrible. I panicked and I thought, oh my God, I've gone into a realm that I shouldn't be in. So I was lying there saying in my head, I am of the light, I am with God, I am of the light, I am with God. I was so scared. And but that's what that affirmation of I only attract people came about in the same way, because I was so scared of having anything. So that's acknowledging the fear, which is a very important part of the process, coming up with a positive action. And that's where, like, I want to give people permission to sit in that fear, but with the positive action of turning it around. And then all of a sudden a new person showed up and I'm like, oh, maybe this works. Keep saying it. The fear starts to dissipate, so I'm not saying it so often. And now I might say it. So, sorry, when I do say it is when I do have somebody awesome come into my life. My gratitude statement is, I only attract people into my life. And it's just it becomes an affirmation and a gratitude statement as well. And it's a statement about, oh, I'm so clever. I only attract people who are awesome. Go me. And that's where you go from fear to knowing. And that's a big part of that process. As soon as you can get to the knowing that the universe isn't an asshole and it's not going to do things when you go into awareness, then it's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we've talked about, the importance really of doing this work, of having that curiosity and that willingness to explore and say, why is this showing up? And I'm ready for it to change. And I'm going in. I'm going to go do some exploration. We've talked about some ways to connect the dots and start to, see what that picture is so that you have that level of awareness. And you can keep raising your level of awareness. The last thing I want to end on really is that idea of action, which we both emphasized. My favorite thing to do, a simplest first action, once I've kind of noticed and I'm connecting the dots and I've checked the books and I've, started to think, what's happening here, is actually simply to go to my journal.
Yep.
I should have the Lighthouse Journal on my desk is what I should have, but to go to my journal and just start, taking those dots and really connecting them further, peeling away layers, what's happening here, and just doing that exploration simply through writing. That's kind of my go-to safe place. From there, I can think, okay, what's a positive action I take? And you've mentioned affirmations, which I think is a really important positive one. You've mentioned gratitude, which is massive. Do you have another go-to, something that if you notice something in yourself or you're working with someone and you've started to connect the dots, what would you send them off to do?
Okay, the biggest and most beneficial step, I believe, in a positive action. So you've got your acknowledgement, and part of your acknowledgement is the journaling and writing it down. One of the things that happens, especially with people who are personally developing and you're listening to your internal dialogue, is your internal dialogue can build to a place where you're actually repeating things that are not true. So when you write down the things, and I know from my journey around journaling or keeping a diary, often I traveled, all of my travel I've done as an independent person. So I did all my travel on my own. So my diary was like my best friend. And when you write down things, it's taking it out of your head. And there is science around the benefit of writing versus typing. There is some sort of neural message thing from the brain to the hand. For example, years ago, I learned about people with depression. They used to chuck them a Rubik's Cube. So the hand motion of getting your brain to try and work out, even though not getting the colours is inducing stress for me, but just the motion was one of the big things. But it's speaking it. So what you do is you write down what you need to get out of your head, and then you speak it, and you'll know sometimes it's like, oh, that doesn't sound right, because this real estate that it's taken up in your head is the part that it's the building of the lies, and that going into your past and heading into your future and fearing and building up stories. So the best part about journaling, and my recommendation, unless you're journaling to write a book one day, is when you brain dump or get all of the stuff out onto a piece of paper, if it is purging, then you really should burn it. So you purge in writing, you speak it to the mirror. Part of the work that I do is every emotion is valid. Even I was brought up, I had a mentor for a while that told me that guilt and shame were useless emotions. And I used to say that a lot. And then one day I went into guilt about something. It's always with my children. So I sat there and I thought, oh, wow, this is my opportunity to change this. So it came from the voice. I felt guilty because of something, like maybe I'd roused at my children or something like that, but I realized that my rousing was coming from a place of fear because of my love for them. Okay. And they made it sometimes my kids are like cocker spaniels off their leash on a 6-lane motorway. So it's one of those things where I took the opportunity to verbalize to my children by, one, apologizing and saying, I'm sorry I yelled at you then, this is why. So I was able to assuage my guilt, but not from a place of demeaning the guilt, but rather seeing it as an opportunity to speak my truth to my children, to not take what I just yelled at them personally, to explain from a place of vulnerability why mum was disappointed or angry or hurt in that moment, and to let them know going forward from that negotiation, it'd be really good if you could think about it before you talk to me like that again, or how can we work this out together? So the reality is every emotion has a place. It is an opportunity to recognize it for what it is and grow through it. Shame is same thing. Like you feel shame when you're that alignment thing that I mentioned. If you're sitting there and you're feeling shameful about something you've said or done, it's the opportunity to go and grab it by both ears and say to whoever, I'm sorry that that's what showed up. This is why. Even if that's part of your journaling because you don't feel safe in saying it to somebody else. then you can heal the shame because you recognize they're the surface things. Guilt and shame are surface emotions. Anger is a surface emotion. Everything is associated with fear or love. They're the basis. So if you can look at something and own it, with writing, reading, purging, apologizing, acceptance, and sometimes surrendering. People are going to be that way. And well, why am I feeling guilty? Because they're not going to change. Well, we surrender to the fact that they're not going to change. We own our guilt and shame around that and our responsibility for having the soul agreement there. Let's just go out and you step out of the story. But it's the verbalization. Like, you know, we've done this before. If you put your hand on your throat, you can feel the vibration in your throat. There is science that says that vibration creates movement. You know, like look at people that do sound work with the balls and they get that vibration. Meditation, it's a sound of vibration in your ears. It's a really powerful part of the process to speak it, because often some things that are stuck, you write them down, then you speak it. It's like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Why have I been lying to myself? And then you start your next process, okay? And then you can set it free for good and step into your truth.
I love that. It made me think that you've given this advice as a strategy before there's something that needs to be said and you can't actually or don't want to actually say it to the person. Go for a drive in your car by yourself, and picture them and their energy and their essence in the seat beside you and speak it out loud in the car as you drive. Yell if you have to, cry if you have to, say what you need to say and get it out in that sense. And that's such a healing thing, just to let those words flow. Often we swallow our words. So that very active speaking out loud is so empowering. And the other thing actually really is in our talk, we've actually hit on, you know, all these different chakra elements really. And what I teach with the Lighthouse, which is, you know, what we're noticing, what we're aware of, what we need to say out loud, what we allow into our space, what we do, you know, steps that we take, what we feel. It's each of the components of the Lighthouse, and it's each of the chakras, and it shows the importance really of actually having that awareness for all of those components, because only focusing on one is only going to get you so far, really.
That's right. You can, same thing, if you want a quick fix and you're sitting there and you just want the picture, absolutely. If you're feeling something in your heart chakra and you grab the heart chakra cards, you get a quick answer. It's enough to keep you going so that there's no wallowing involved. It's the same thing, not across everything. Knowledge removes ignorance. Okay? So when you're sitting there and you're doing your work and you go, oh, right, that's okay. Okay, yes, okay, I'll go over and do that. If you don't have time. Then the other thing that I just wanted to quickly, as a hello, Finny. That's all right. When you were talking before, a bird turned up in my tree that it was like making me see it because it was jumping around, and it's a bird from the Oriole family. So while you were talking, I don't know whether you saw me put my hands over here, I found the totem information, and this is the message, I guess, for today's session together. Oriole is a symbol that the worst is over. The sun will soon smile on you, and you will experience brighter days. There is a probability that you are having the toughest challenge in your life. Perhaps you have endured a lot of heartaches, and the Oriole is giving you a sign that your luck will soon change for the better. Rejoice. This will be the sweetest time of all.
Wow. Ooh, that is juicy. So for anyone listening, if there's something that has come up for you, even as you were thinking about this idea of exploring, apply that message to it and see how it makes you feel. That's cool. Yeah. What a perfect way to end off our chat together. Amanda and I could probably talk about this for another 7 hours. Because we have. But we'll leave you with those ideas, and really, really, this is about that nudge for each of you listening to notice what you notice what's showing up, and ask that question with curiosity. You know, what do I need to do? What do I need to see here? What do I need to learn from this? And what will be the positive action that I could take to start to shift things in some way? Because that's really, no one else is going to come and do that work but you. This is about self-leadership. It's about turning up and saying, I want things to change. There's some things I want to do in my life. There's a light I'm here to shine. So what's the work? What's the work? Amanda, thank you so much for being a guest in the Spotlight session once again and sharing your beautiful strategies and your stories about how this work shows up, you know, in real life examples. I really appreciate that. And I will be putting the links to go find more from Amanda, her website, as well as her online space so that you can follow her. She often shows up online with some great strategies. You have to check out her Facebook Lives. Thank you for being here and sharing that with our audience.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. You know, I'm one of your biggest fans, so I'm really honored that you're bringing me into your space to help your people as well. I think it's you and I both operate from the place that it takes a village to raise a child. So we, you know, when we work together as a team, then people they do get the greater outcomes, which is good. The more we can reduce suffering, the better. So thank you for having me, and thanks for listening, everybody. I'm really grateful for your attention to what we're trying to teach today as well. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Keep exploring. Keep shining that light of awareness on your own lighthouse, this thing you're here to build and to be in the world. The work is never done. As you will have noticed from both of our conversations, we still do this work ourselves every single day. And the main thing we want you to know that you can do it as well and that it's part of the journey. So thank you so much for being here. Do check out the links below to find more of Amanda, and we'll see you for the next Spotlight session. Bye.